It's so fascinating because I can't tell how much is like painstakingly arranged and how much of it is just spontaneous improvisation.
Welcome to A Musical Mind. I'm your host, Richard Raymond II. I'm a recording engineer, music producer, and multi-instrumentalist located in Colorado Springs, Colorado. In this podcast, we'll talk to a variety of musicians about the music-making process, as well as the life and mindset that have helped them find success as a musical mind. Thank you for being here. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Today's guest is Bob Cummins Jr., the Dallas, Texas-based singer, songwriter, and pianist. I caught one of Bob's shows a couple weeks ago. Really liked what I was hearing. Just kind of that, 70s type of songwriting that I know and love, and it felt very familiar for me to hear it. And I reached out to Bob to see if he wanted to come on the show, and he was kind enough to do so. And we just kind of shoot the shit here in this episode, talk about bands that we like, bands we don't like, and why writing songs is something we both love to do. Here you go, Bob Cummins Jr. Hey everyone, you're listening to A Musical Mind. Thanks for being here. I'm here with today's Musical Mind, the singer, songwriter, pianist, and big fan of payday candy bars, Bob Cummins Jr. Bob, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I was going to get a payday today, but I decided not to.
Well,
I was at the convenience store earlier today and I thought maybe it's a payday and it wasn't, but still a big fan.
what's your runner up?
Either a Snickers or a Take Five.
Dude, I like Take Five. I
Take
always
Five's rock.
I don't eat a ton of candy these days, but whenever, it's fun to talk about your favorite candy, and I feel like I always shout out the Take Five,
It's got
you know?
everything you'd ever want. It's like a
Yeah.
Snickers, but there's pretzels in it,
Yep. And
peanut
nougat.
butter. So good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a great combination.
absolutely.
You are tuning in from Dallas, Texas. I missed that in the introduction there. And I caught a show of yours about 2 weeks ago or so at Lulu's in Colorado Springs. That was the first time that I was at that location. I don't know if you're familiar with the old Lulu's, which was like in Manitou Springs, still Colorado Springs, but a little bit different.
Right. Last either August or September, we played a show at Lulu's downstairs or Lulu's upstairs.
Okay.
Um, and it was great. And we left being like excited to play there again. And then we saw like a month or two later that it had closed. We were really sad, but pretty immediately I think they announced their reopening at the new location and it was really cool.
Yeah, I have no idea what happened. It was like similar for me. I saw something on social media that they were closing, and then like they had a new location, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what? And so that was my first time there. And there's a bartender, I don't remember his name, but I guess here's a fun story. So my brother-in-law, my father-in-law, and my wife, we weren't married at the time, but we went to Lulu's um on like I think it was like a Wednesday or Thursday night or something. We had gone out to dinner and we went over there basically to show my father-in-law and my brother-in-law the place because they like music, and we it's kind of a cool spot. And
Absolutely.
there was maybe one or two other people in there, and then just one guy behind the bar. We were downstairs and we drank so many old fashions, and like we were there for probably less than 2 hours, and I think I had 4 old fashions.
Oh my
Like,
god.
my father-in-law was just he's just kept going, "You want another one? You want another one?" And it's like, after a certain point, like, you just start saying keep saying yes, I should say. Um, and I remember, like,
And
walking
this
out
was
of
like one of
there.
the first times you'd met him, or had you known him for a while before then?
My father-in-law?
Yeah.
No, I knew him, but, like, not super duper well, because my wife and I, we did things very quickly and then moved out here,
Mm,
um, within, like, a year. So, yeah, I didn't know him all too well, though I had, like, hung out with him and I drank with him a couple times before,
yeah. I
but,
could I
like
could see myself being in like a similar situation where I'm nervous and I'm like kind of drinking fast, and
yeah,
then he
yeah.
offers me another one. I'm like, oh, why not?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was that kinda
Where you
thing, and
going?
I remember, like, walking out of there and being like, I'm walking so straight right now." And then but, like, on the ride home, it hit me, and I
Oof,
literally slept in the bathroom that night. Um,
man.
but I'm tying this back into your show because that bartender, whose name I'm forgetting, but he's, like, a cool dude from New York. He's lived in Colorado Springs for a very long time, used to bartend at a place called Suga's in town, which is another cool spot, and he's, like, friends with the guy who owns Lulu's, or guy or girl, I don't know who owns Lulu's.
Mark, maybe?
I don't even know. I
I met him. I'm assuming he was the owner, but at he was there at the show, and he was just one of the nicest owners of a venue I've ever met.
that's yeah, that
Kind of a unicorn.
cool, that checks out with, I I I can't remember this guy's name, but if
Mm,
you've been to Lulu's, you know who I'm talking about. He's got black hair, almost kinda spiky, like, thick frame glasses, um, probably in his 50s or so,
mm.
and around the block, cool guy, very friendly. Um, but so I had been to a couple other shows at Lulu's after that, and I used to say hi to him and stuff, and then I had a daughter, and so I just, like, fell off the map and forgot his name in that, period. But
Hmm.
he was there the day that we went to your show, and then he left, like, right after we got there. We're like, "Damn," like, I had so many questions to figure out, like, what the hell happened, and he would have been the guy to
Man,
talk to. So I left that show without knowing, like, anything, about, what was the building before? Like, did they put in everything that was there? Because it just I was so confused. I'm like, "This was here?" Like, I don't know.
right.
Yeah.
Well, it was a venue called 42 Blue or 32 Blue. I can't remember the
Mm,
name, but
you know more than me.
my guitarist and who produced my record, Andy Jones, great guy. Saw Rufus Wainwright there,
Mm,
like in the early 2000s when it was this other venue, and so that space had some kind of uh, emotional resonance to him.
mm.
And so I don't know how much the layout had changed, but I would imagine that it was pretty similar to, or it's been a pretty similar layout for like the last 20 years or whatever.
Okay. That's helpful info. But then also, like, what's gonna go into the old spot because that's, like, the coolest building ever.
No.
Yeah.
And like that downstairs area is so cool. Whenever we played there, this singer-songwriter Jim Lauderdale was playing,
I don't
and
know.
I had never heard of him, but he did some stuff with uh like members of the Grateful Dead, and was just kind of a songwriter who was around and from the 70s to present. Robert Hunter from the Grateful Dead. And he just played an amazing set. There were people down there. There were people up at the bar. There were a surprising amount of people that attended our, out of towner show. So it was kind of shocking whenever that place closed.
Yeah. If I find out more, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
But you were asking before we started, how did I end up at your show? My father-in-law has one of your records. Um,
Okay.
yeah. He wasn't even really like so I was like, "How do you know this guy?" And he was like, I don't know. It's like I saw it. He was coming into town visiting, and he like checked the venues in the area because he likes to go to shows, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I have like one of those records." Like,
Man, that rocks. That makes me feel great. I
yeah,
wonder how he heard about it. That's
this
so funny.
he's from Chicago, so
Okay.
oh,
I have I've never been to Chicago. So,
that's hilarious. I mean,
um,
he's a bit of a crate digger, but still,
mm, well, the
um,
record, I was very, very fortunate that it had like a Bandcamp feature whenever it came out. So maybe you heard about it on there. Um, but yeah, that's super weird. That's never happened to me before.
yeah.
That's sick.
Uh, Tell us a bit about the record because I just went along to this show and then really enjoyed your songwriting, and had a couple drinks in me and was like, I should have him on the podcast, see if he's interested. I was gonna talk to you that night, but you kind of like scurried off. And I'm like, let's get out of here. We're gonna go back and
Yeah, I
um,
think we went a little late. So I was like, let's get the gear out of
yeah,
here.
yeah,
And we had to drive back to Pueblo and it was fine.
yeah, yeah.
Um but uh yeah, I mean the record was it was mostly recorded in 2022, I want to say, or no, 2021, like fall of 2021. And it didn't get into development hell or anything. I just kind of sat on it for a while, had mixed feelings about it, did like a remix and that whole thing, and finally released it. But yeah, it was me and a lot of the musicians on that stage, just my musician buddies, and um, Andy Jones behind the mixing board working magic. And uh, yeah, I'm really proud of all the work that they did, and they made it sound great.
Cool. So, what's it called? Because I'll
It's
link all
called
this in the
cool.
show notes.
It's called Good American Songbook. Um, like a jab at the Great American Songbook. It's just good.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's like I don't know how I would describe it. Like, yeah, singer songwriter, but that's so vague. I'm a big fan of like uh 60s pop, baroque pop, um, ambient music, electronic music. Um,
That's why I
so
like your
it fits
songs.
somewhere in there.
Like, yep. Hmm. Um, that's cool. I gotta ask, are you a fan of 10cc?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, absolutely.
that was like the first thing I kind of thought of when you started singing. Um,
That's so funny. I'm not like a super fan of 10cc, not for any reason. I haven't delved into their stuff, but I've always been fascinated by the backing vocals on "I'm Not in Love."
yeah,
That whole, like, it's a synthesizer, or not, but like a sampler, like a really early sampler.
they
That's
did it all manually and
it's
then like had
crazy.
it on faders. Yeah, I'm not really a fan either. My brother-in-law is not the one I've been talking about, other brother-in-law. Um, but that song has really moved me, and like I've written songs inspired directly by like that vibe. And right when you started playing, I was like, oh, like I love this type of shit, you know. Um, so yeah, while I'm mentioning the other brother-in-law, are you familiar with the Webb brothers by chance? So this is Jimmy Webb, who's like a super famous
Oh
songwriter.
yeah, big
His
Jimmy Webb.
boys. Yeah, do
Oh,
you
his
know?
boys.
Yeah.
You
They're
know
like,
what? I'm gonna do a quick Spotify search right now because
yeah,
it that rings a bell, and I love Jimmy Webb.
yeah.
I mean, we played Wichita lineman at the show.
Oh, I don't know a lot of Jimmy Webb. I know the Webb brothers. My brother-in-law used to play with them
Oh, sick.
in like the early 2000s, so I like kind of, grew up listening to those records. And they're
Oh,
brothers,
very
they
cool.
both sing, but Christian Webb, you guys have like the same delivery vocally. And my brother-in-law is very
Whoa.
similar too. So that I like texted my sister and brother-in-law. I'm like, "Do you guys know Bob Cummins Jr.? Like he sounds like Zach." Like,
Whoa, crazy.
yeah.
Well, these the graphic design on these album covers are so perfectly like turn of the millennium. Like I
Yeah,
kind of
they
love
really
it.
are. Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna check this out after the podcast.
Yeah, I think you'd like it. The
They got some
first
new stuff too.
That's
Wow.
news to me.
All
Wait,
right.
let me go
Check it
look.
out.
What is it?
It's like there's a single from 2021, 2022, and 2023.
No
You're
way.
getting the news here first.
What the
Web
hell?
Brothers fans.
What? I didn't you have to like open you have to hit see all discography for those to pop up on my end anyway. So I've probably just like missed that. I haven't
Man,
listened to them much recently, but that's interesting because the last thing prior to that was 2003. So
right.
that's a that's a surprise to me. But yeah, just the songwriting and like vocal delivery very similar. And I like that stuff. But yeah, their first record they like it was all demos, but they wound up they recorded them pretty well. The drummer, he's an engineer, Neil Ostrovsky. I actually the first thing I ever put out, I like worked with Neil.
Whoa.
But just because he's my brother-in-law's friend.
Right.
It wasn't like a big release or anything. But anyway, and then they wound up later on, they were signed to some like British branch of Warner Bros. And like we're working with Steven Street and I think they did some stuff with Dave Friedman as well. So
Whoa.
it was cool
Big
to
leagues.
yeah, and so that's like my brother-in-law played bass for them. Not on all the records, but towards the end of their career, but apparently it's still going. So
Right.
I kind of
Need to
like
call him back up.
yeah, all of those influences of theirs like were always fed to me. My brother-in-law, he's what is he? He's 49 and I met him when I was 8. I'm 28, so for 20 years, but
Wow.
he was like in his 30s. Um I don't know what the point I'm trying to make here is just that the stuff that I can tell your songs were so familiar to me, mostly from all the shit that I was fed from my brother-in-law, which would trace back kinda to the Webb Brothers and just that '60s
Right.
pop, like you were saying. That was my whole point here. It just felt like home to hear that type of songwriting. Um,
Oh man, that feels great to hear. Thank you.
yeah, so I wanna hear a bit more about your songwriting. Like, are you a trained musician? How did you learn how to write songs? That sort of thing.
I so I took I started out playing piano at this school here in Dallas, kind of a school of rock kind of thing called Zound Sounds, which was very formative to me. It was like being in bands and meeting other musicians, other 12-year-olds who play guitar
Mhm.
and playing rock music. So that's my foundation. I went to arts high school and learned a very basic like classical training, and a little bit of jazz and theory and all that. Um, and since then, I've just been playing in bands. um, but I can't say that I'm like a trained songwriter. I think that's just something that I've always wanted to do, and um, you know, just started out making shitty song after shitty song until they started becoming releasable or releasing them before they were releasable.
Right, yeah. I
But
think
yeah, I can't say that like songwriting it's I feel like it's something that I've wanted to do since I knew that was a thing you could do. So it's felt right.
Cool. And so when did you start writing songs? Like in high school when you were
Seriously writing songs. Um,
well, let's do
I
both.
wrote a
Like
few, yeah,
just
I was thinking about the first song that I wrote the other day, weirdly enough. And it was like about waking up and starting your day and reading the paper
sounds like a
I
McCartney
was like
tune.
I know, I was like 8 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like a tunk 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 like very Paul
Yeah.
McCartney kind of
Woke up,
thing.
got out of bed.
Yeah.
Like
Hilarious. But seriously writing them probably like sophomore year of college.
okay.
Um so, kind of a late start. I took a songwriting class in high school where I wrote songs, but it was kind of like pulling teeth. I don't think
Mm.
that I was vulnerable enough with myself to do it and like feel happy with what I had written.
Mm.
Um, but after enough living or just a little more living,
Sure.
I felt like I was in a place where I could open up to myself and release it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's not like since high school I've been writing songs every day though. It's always like an on and off kind of thing. I'll have like weeks where I write every day and then months where I just don't write anything or I'm busy or whatever. It's a it's an ebb and flow for sure.
You still playing a lot in those, like, down periods, we'll call them?
Absolutely. And I think playing sometimes can be the reason that I don't write a lot. Like
Mm.
I am in a bunch of bands that I love being in, but and doing lessons and I have a day job and all this stuff. And once I've been playing in blah 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 band at the beginning of the day and then doing lessons and then at the end of the day it's like do I want to write more or do I want to do something else?
Right.
So
Yeah.
um you know it's I've been trying to avoid burnout lately. um but that's kind of being a working musician, I guess.
Yeah, that's like
Like it becomes your life. And I that's like for a while I didn't have a day job and I was just trying to do the music thing just every day, gigging all the time, and that's when your creative energy really starts to drain.
mm,
uh but like recently I've been writing so much more and I feel so much more inspired from just like setting that boundary of like, okay, here's my writing time, here's my screw off work time or whatever, where I can just, have a rest, brain rest.
yeah, I'd love to hear more about that because that's kinda what this show is all about. It's trying to help people, I like to say, cut through the mix. So it's mostly like people listening are gonna be aspiring musicians or, music professionals already, or kind of like you described, toggling back and forth. So
Mm.
what is your day job right now, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh no, no, no. I work at Sprouts Farmers Market. I don't know if y'all have
Nice.
those
We
in
do.
Colorado Springs. Yeah,
They,
it's a good store.
they just
I
built a
like
new
working.
one. You know what? This is weird. I was so I do a lot of different things. Lately, I've been door dashing a lot. That's, like, one of my side hustles.
Dude, I used to DoorDash, Instacart all the time. It's great for like having an open schedule, but
Yeah.
you got to be like disciplined.
Yeah, it's tough. I started doing it, like, when we moved out here, which was, kind of in the heart of the pandemic, and it was, like, really consistent and pretty reliable, and it's kind of I took about a year off from it, and now it's not as flexible, and by that, I don't mean, like, when you can go out and work, but in terms of, like, when it's gonna be worth your time. It's a
Absolutely.
it's a bit more smaller windows, but, anyway, I went to a Sprouts, like, 2 days ago, and, I go to grocery stores a lot. We kind of, like, bulk ordered a lot of our meat, and then, like, we'll go to a store to just pick up whatever we need for a meal, so it's like I mean, I probably go, like, 5 times a week because 'cause I'm not doing, like, a full haul, it's just kind of like a, you know, a thing I do. So I like to go to different places for different things. I have
Right.
lots of opinions about this. Um, but there's a store called Natural Grocers out here, and that's
Oh,
kind of like
great, great store.
yeah, that's like home base for my wife and I. And they
But I feel like
just
natural speaking of which, Natural
yeah,
Grocers is one of those stores where, like, it's great. It's my favorite vibe of out of all the grocery stores, but it's like you go to Natural Grocers and then you go to Albertsons or whatever to get the rest of your stuff
right.
usually.
Yeah, you gotta know what to buy. And
Absolutely. What's in season.
yeah, and like certain items, like their store brand eggs, for example. Um, you can get very high quality eggs over there. Their top gold gold standard egg is like 5.99. If you were at any
Mhm.
other store, that's like 7.99 all the way up to
Dude,
9.99. So
yeah,
stuff like that, they take the loss leader approach on, which makes sense. Got to get you in. You need your eggs,
absolutely.
and then they'll take your legs out with the I don't know, flour or something.
Right.
Yeah. So you gotta know what to do. And you need reps. And what I'm saying is I get a lot of reps. I go to a lot of different stores. We're talking
Ah,
about Sprouts here. Sprouts just came in. They just built a new one, like right across from Natural Grocers. And it was kind of
whoa.
like, you know, you start identifying with your grocery store. We call it Natty G's, you know. I don't have like a
Right.
tattoo, but I could. You know,
Mhm.
they got the cool bags they give you, so anywhere we're going, we're rocking the Natty G's bag. You see the other people, you're kinda like, "Alright, cool, like, what's up?" You know? Real
But
recognize
they're
real.
encroaching on your
Yeah,
territory.
exactly, so I was kind of like, "Alright, fucking Sprouts, okay, alright, fine." Like, went
What's
in
up?
there first couple times, and I'm just kind of like, "There's too much fucking processed shit in here." Like, it's all
Right.
aisles of they have so much frozen shit, and I'm just kind of like, "Fuck Sprouts." But anyway, I had to I had to go in there the other day while I was door dashing, and I interacted with, like, 4 employees, and they were all so kind and very helpful, and, like, I got out of there very quickly, and when you're dashing, time is money, and, like, on the way
Absolutely.
out of there, I, like, voice messaged my wife, I was like, "Hey, like, I had a really good experience at Sprouts, like, they just gained a gold star from me today."
What are
So
you talking about?
so it's just
That's
funny
not
that
our store.
that was just, like, 2 days ago, so it's funny that you work at Sprouts. How do you like it?
Yeah, it's all right. It's very flexible with hours. So, if I have a gig, if I tell them in advance, it's real easy to get off for that. My coworkers are super nice. It's the least toxic work environment, especially for like a corporate business that you could
Mhm.
ask for. So, I'm fortunate to have it. Um, but like the one downside, and you would get this at any grocery store. I don't know about Natural Grocers, but they have the same playlist every day. And so I hear the same songs. And it started out fine. Like they I don't know if you noticed any do you go into the store with headphones in, or
No, no, I would never.
do you listen to the music they provide?
Yeah, I do. I don't think they play music at Natural Grocers.
I don't
Um,
think they do either. At
yeah,
least I've
which
never noticed
I
it.
never thought about this, though. That's
It's nice. Dude, it's especially during Christmas time. It's like there
Mm,
you learn that there are so many versions of simply having a wonderful Christmas time, or like um Silver Bells. Oh my god,
mhm,
like 7 versions of Silver Bells. But there are highs to the playlist. Like I'm a big Bruce Hornsby head. They play some Bruce Hornsby, like Steve Winwood. Whenever
mm,
those songs come on, I'm like, I'm into it.
mhm.
Um, but you just can't hear the same song every day, or it'll drive you crazy.
Yeah, especially for a musician, but that's like
Absolutely, it's hard to filter out. Some
yeah,
people like my I one of my coworkers who is there like every day. Um, she was, or one time I was complaining about the music, and she was like, "Oh, whenever it gets like past 9 o'clock and customers are actually coming in, I completely filter it out." All right,
yeah,
that's cool. I wish I
'cause
had your brain.
yeah, no, I was thinking about that, my wife, to overshare, she's been, like, not feeling understood by me lately, and
Mm,
she's actually out of town right now with my daughter. They're in North Carolina, so I've been on my own for the first time in quite a while, and, you know, kind of, like, almost, like, reverted to my old former self. Like, I've been playing a
mm.
shitload, I've been recording, like, just, like, I smoked some weed the other day. I don't really smoke weed that much
Whoa.
anymore, and I'm just kind of like, I'm like, "Yeah," I'm like, "Back and back." Alright, I'm in my zone, and I'm just like, "You know what?" Like, I don't think my wife's name is Sammy. I'm like, I don't think she has any fucking clue how at any single point in the day, if I'm not completely immersed in something, there's music going on in my head. I'm like, I don't think
Absolutely.
she knows that about me, and, like, it's not something I can tune out. It's something I'm obsessed with, like, at all times, and that may be why I miss some things here or there, you know what I mean? Like, that may have something to do with it.
That's the thing. Like I heard someone say something like that. Maybe it was in a meme or something. Uh, just someone realizing like, oh, I didn't know that other people didn't have music going in their head like at all times. When nobody's talking, or when there's no other stimuli, there's like something like the last song I heard, or like a song that I heard that I haven't heard in like 5 years, or uh, it could be triggered by like seeing a word on a sign, and you're like,
Right.
"Oh, hello," reminds me of this song by Adele that I kind of like, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
um, and then you just have that song in your head for the longest time. But that's the rub when it comes to the music at a workplace. Like I've noticed in my songs since working there, like certain chord progressions or like
Yeah.
arrangement ideas will just like sound like a uh I can't even think of a good example. Like some alternative rock, like a Faith Hill song.
Mhm.
Like some alternative rock artist from uh like the late 90s that I never would, or a Train song, God
Yeah, yeah.
forbid. Where it's like, "Oh my god, what is this store doing to me?" Like, it's hearing music all the time, even if you're not aware of it, or like you're subliminally aware of it, it'll just shape your melodic, harmonic, textural vocabulary, or your sensibility. It's a better word.
It's unavoidable. It's
Yeah,
I minored in Spanish in college, and I learned about linguistics a lot, and I feel like it's almost perfectly analogous to, like, what we're talking about here. If you're in the womb and you're surrounded by English, like, it's you're predisposed, and that's, like, what you're gonna lead to. And I feel like it's the
Absolutely.
same type of thing. And I've like since college, I've kind of slowly become more and more a fan of jazz, and that's not something that my wife was a fan of, and but she's heard it a shitload over the past 3 years or whatever because of me, and, like,
Right.
I don't even know if I've told this to her, but, I've heard her comment on other music in a way where I'm like, like, kind of shit talking something else or whatever, and I'm like, "That's because you fucking like jazz now," like,
Right.
you don't even know it, but you can't like, you're bothered by these other things, and, like, I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's because jazz is the culprit here, like, you don't even
Who have you
put
been?
it on, but you're immersed in it, and it's going to, like, change the way you think even, you know what I
Absolutely.
mean? So,
Yeah,
like
that spontaneity, or
mhm,
just the like, I'm not a huge believer in, like, or I don't try to be a huge believer in, like, complexity equals good music or whatever, but
right.
that, there's just such, like, a rich, um, I don't know, it's maybe not rich, it's jazz is, it can be anything, and that's what's so exciting about it. I was, listening to, you ever listen to Charles Mingus?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
I got into him a little bit in, like, college, and, I hadn't listened to him in a sec, and I was listening to this album on my way back from work, weirdly enough, picking, or my girlfriend was taking a Spanish course, like, 3 miles away,
Uh-huh.
and, I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna walk to Cara's Spanish class, and I'm gonna listen to some music because I hadn't taken a walk in a while." And the album Mingus 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 is life changing. So just some amazing music. It's like it's so fascinating because I can't tell how much is, like, painstakingly arranged and how much of it is uh just spontaneous improvisation.
That's
Um
cool.
I'm sure it's more of the former, but it just feels like a loose, um, just sweaty orchestra s- in there, like one take, doing this amazing thing. I don't
Mhm.
know. It's great music. Highly recommend.
I will, I'm gonna listen to it in bed tonight.
All right.
I don't even know what Mingus I've listened to. I was, in high school, I was a giant Radiohead fan, and I was a big fan of, man, I'm like, it's
Yes.
Amnesiac, right? I don't know if you're a Radiohead
Oh,
fan. That's a
that's one record that I haven't delved into.
They were listening to a
The
lot of
Pyramid
Mingus.
Song.
Yeah, yeah, they were listening to a lot of jazz and Mingus in particular, during that period.
Well, that one tune, the national anthem, is, like, very Mingus. Those, like, brass parts at the end on,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
uh
That was a different record, but then,
right.
that's on Kid A, but
Kid
there's a
A. Yeah, there we go.
lot of overlap. Um, so I know I went and checked it out years back. What's up, guys? Taking a quick pause here to talk about my sample pack, Laid Back and Groovy Guitars. I did this sample pack with 5-Pin Media, the British sample pack label. And in this sample pack, you will find 376 live guitar loops, 144 guitar one-shots, and 142 lap steel one-shots, all drawing on an influence from psych, jazz, funk, and soul, inspired by artists such as Khruangbin, Goat, Fela Kuti, and Herbie Hancock. All these loops are both DI and the amp signal with printed effects and are distributed over the BPMs 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, and 120, all evenly distributed over 4 different keys, giving you a wide variety of moods and feel to play with. Guys, there is a ton in this sample pack. Check it out. Get all the guitar you need for your beats. If you're a drummer, you want to play along to some guitar loops, whatever you need, this thing has it. I spent a shitload of time on this. Click the link in the show notes. Once again, Laid Back and Groovy Guitars by 5 Pin Media, available on loopmasters.com. Go and get it. But my thing with jazz, on the whole, like, what I love about it is, growing up, I was obsessed with knowing what band was playing what song,
Mm,
and that's almost always something I would pick up on, um, from the vocals, like, that's the
right.
most distinct thing that anyone can do, really, like, so you can kind of hear a note, "Ah, that's this person, that's that person." Um in 8th grade, we had, a music class, and we would play this game where, like, our music teacher, who was, like, this cool guitar player who didn't work for our school, we just, like, brought him in to teach music, and, a lot of it was, like, just really we weren't, like, learning how to write or read music or anything. Some of what we would do for the whole class period would be, like, he'd get his iPod, we'd have 2 teams, and, like, whoever could name the song or the artist first, like, would get a point or whatever, and, like, whatever team I was on just fucking dominated. Like, I was like, I loved that, I was passionate about it. Jazz completely, like, took that away from me,
Right.
and that's, like, what I love about it, so I don't give a rat's ass who I'm listening to, I don't pay attention to that, I just have this enormous jazz playlist that I've been making for years called Jazz
Mm,
Masters, so if I find
nice.
something on the radio, I just, like, because there's in Chicago, there's 90.9, like, great jazz station, and
Mm,
out here, we have 93.5, which is almost just as good, if not just as good. Um, so if I hear an artist usually in between tracks, when they mention something, I'll just go find, like, an era or artwork that I like and just throw it in that playlist. So I just put on my Jazz Masters playlist, and I don't fucking look at who I'm listening to
man,
90%
that's
of the
great.
time, and I love that, because I have no I know who I'm listening to in any other well, not any other genre, but in, pop music, whatever you wanna call it, um, and it doesn't I just love that about it.
Absolutely. Speaking of jazz stations, there's this, I'm gonna call out a station real quick.
Yeah.
Uh, I grew up in Dallas, and, there was this station in Denton, which is like a suburb of Dallas, um, college town. It's where University of North Texas is, and they had this station called The One, 88.1, and it was just this great jazz station that was, um they would have, like, a Latin night, they would have, like, 50s jazz, big band, all this, just any kind of jazz. Sometimes they would play, like, local stuff, just a great mixed bag of goodies. And then I moved to Austin, came back around, like, the time I recorded the record, like, 2021, and we were recording it in Denton, so I was driving up there a lot. And I tuned in, I maybe my phone wasn't working or whatever, hate to say. And, it's like, "Okay, I'll listen to the radio. I'll listen to 88.1." They were playing "Chasing Cars" by Snow Patrol. And they completely reformatted the station, um, because I
That
guess they weren't getting
sucks.
enough listeners. But yeah, calling out 88.1 The One, that sucks. Y'all had a great thing going.
Yeah, man, I think
But there's
that
no jazz station in Dallas.
that sucks because I
Yeah.
think our station is relatively new. I've lived here for almost 3 years, and it's been here as long as I've been here, but I think it's fairly new, and it's all
Mm,
listener supported.
that's
I'm one of
great.
those assholes who listens every day and has never donated. I should consider it, but, yeah, that's a shame, but it feels I would be devastated if that were taken away, because they play
Absolutely.
so much cool shit. It's so awesome to, like they play a lot of blues. It is a jazz station, but they will kind of stray a bit. Like, I heard some
Right.
Tom Misch on there the other day, but, like, it's like musicians' music,
Right.
in general, and it's just so great to hear things that swing. I would say that's, like, the main criteria is, like, does it swing? Alright. It'll we'll
Hell
play it,
yeah.
and I think, like, more and more on other stations, like, that's just being phased out, which is sketching me out a little bit. Um,
I don't know. I mean, I
yeah.
feel like I don't maybe this is just something that I'm becoming privy to the more I grow or explore as a musician, but I feel like there's a lot of great jazz and fusion happening right now that either wasn't, 10 or 15 years ago to this extent or I just wasn't aware of. Um like do you know Pedro Martins?
Nope.
He's one of the greatest jazz guitarists that I've ever heard, or at the very least is like around playing right now. Um, Highly recommend if you're into like fusion. He mixes in like pop and like Brazilian music too. But yeah, he's like a songwriter, guitarist, virtuoso guy. I think there's still jazz around. It's just mixed into other things,
Yeah.
whether that be
Yeah,
like electronic music, funk, hip hop, whatever.
absolutely. Which I love a lot of that. Can you say his name again just so I make sure I'll link it in the show notes?
Sure. Pedro Martins or Martins.
Got it. Okay, cool. Do you know of anything in particular we should check out?
His new album Radio Mysterio that came out last year. It's great.
Okay, cool. Go down to the show notes, click the link. It'll take you straight there.
All
Um,
right.
but I was just thinking today while I was out delivering everyone's food, like, I'm in a new space. Um,
Mm.
we live in a condo. This is the basement, and it was completely unfinished. I'll, like, turn my camera real quick. It's,
Hey, look at that.
yeah,
That's a bona fide music room.
it sure is. This is like the podcast nook over here.
Is that a whirly over there?
It is a Korg SV1, which has a mean whirly sound in it, but
Oh, is that the one with the little like
the tube,
tube?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, those are sick.
It really
Got
is
great sounds.
phenomenal sounds. Um, but anyway, so I've kind of, I th I haven't actually tried to dissect the problem. I've been playing a lot of guitar lately for it kinda started when we were moving because all my shit was, like, at other people's places, so my guitar was, like, my acoustic was, like, the only thing I had accessible. But, I've been playing solo shows, and I have, like, a it's a Korg Volca sample. I just play finger drums on it. I play drums too. So I don't like programming. I would rather, like, finger drum because it's quicker and I'll loop it. Anyway, I have everything going through my mixer. There's a million chords involved in order to get the guitar, and I split the signals, so I have the, like, low end separate, the E, A, and D strings, so I'm, like, playing bass and guitar at the same time, and then I have this
Nice.
little finger drum thing to get all of that through my loop pedals so I can have, like, 3 loops that are, running in time with one another.
Right.
Um, I need the mixer, and I have to use, like, reamp boxes. It's a pain in the ass. My amp signal right now is very noisy,
Mm.
um, and I haven't really tried to diagnose the problem. It could be something going on there. I could hit the ground lift on my reamp pedals, that might do it, or it might just be kinda gnarly power situation down here, like dirty power going on.
It could be. Now, let me tell you,
Yeah,
nothing against Lulu's upstairs, downstairs, downtown, I don't care. But both times we've played in Colorado Springs, our bassist amp has, like, gone out and started smoking, and it's only in Colorado Springs.
the fuck?
At both, it's we call it the Lulu's curse because it happened at both locations. So I don't know what that's about. So I don't know what's up with the power in Colorado Springs, but might
That
be something worth
is
looking into.
wild.
Like he opened his bass amp and just a woof of smoke
What
after both
the
shows.
hell?
Yeah,
That is super strange. I've not heard of anything like that.
me neither.
That's weird. Um, that's so crazy. The whole point I was getting at with this is, I kinda like it. Like, I just recorded something down here, pretty much for the first time since, like, having everything set up in this room, and, when the guitar is playing and everything, it's like you're not really noticing the hum, um, but if I'm letting something sustain, like that, you start noticing it, but I'm kind of like, I think I wanna get even shittier with my audio quality, which is weird as someone who, like, I identify as an audio engineer, but here's why, because I feel like we're going completely in this other direction, the majority of us, and, like, I think there's gonna be something, desirable, and this has been happening, we have, like, tape plugins and everyone's doing all this shit to make, you know, things sound older or whatever, but I don't
Right,
know. This was like another level, like letting there be noise from my amp, is like a
right,
bit different than like me trying to introduce some wow and flutter in the box, you know what I mean? Like,
right, right.
I
Like
think I would.
artificial tape hiss or
Yeah,
whatever.
like, cause I think we're gonna get there won't even be amps to hum, like, we're you know what I mean? Like, people going DI, 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 and I've done that as well, like, in my last space, I was DIing more and more, like,
Mm,
with my guitar and got great sounds. This isn't about what's better, I'm not shit talking on that, I'm just basically talking about, like, uh, from an just an artistic standpoint, I feel like you a fan of Rick Beato? You know Rick Beato, the
yeah,
YouTuber?
yeah. It's funny. I've been like within the last month. I feel like I've been recommended by YouTube like 5 different Rick Beato videos that I saw the description and I was like, I'm kind of interested. I'll bite.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's got some good takes.
Yeah. So, I've watched his stuff for years, not, like, religiously, but, consistently enough, and, he is someone who, to some degree, like, pays attention to, like, modern pop music, which I have
Absolutely.
no pulse on whatsoever. Is
Hmm.
he, like I don't he'll do some videos where he's, like, dissecting, like, a trap song or something to try and be like,
Right.
"What is it that people are liking about this?" So, in watching those, I've learned a bit more about, like, there's this one video where he's talking about I'll see if I can find it, I'll put it in the show notes, and, he's talking about Auto-Tune and how, um I think he's talking about T-Pain and how it's ironic that T-Pain's actually, like, a fucking incredible
Yeah.
singer.
Phenomenal
Yeah.
singer.
But he goes on to talk about how, like, his biggest gripe with Auto-Tune is not necessarily the sound of it as much as that it's going to make music, like AI music is going to be able to so easily
Easily replicate
take
that.
over what is popular because it's already being so robotic, like that's what's
Yeah.
hip right now, and he's kind of like seeing that as a big problem. So this is all the shit as I'm just like hearing back my recording from the other day. I'm like, damn, my amp is really fucking loud. Like that's a problem. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like I'm like, I think I'm gonna welcome that with open arms because this is gonna be so strange for people to be like, what am I hearing? You know what I mean? Like it's almost
Well,
like
I mean, I think there's something like very familiar and uh, friendly. I mean, I don't want to say nostalgic because I think it's more clinical than like, oh, this is from the past and this is from the present. But you hear like one thing that I love about like certain hyper pop records or IDM records
I
or
love IDM.
eh, yeah, any like uh electronic pop uh from the last what like 5 years or something. Whenever there's no tape hiss on it, and there's so much whenever they use negative space, it feels so huge and it feels like it's just pushing down on you. Like whenever there's just like a huge 808 kick or something, and then just nothing, no reverb,
Mhm.
no tape hiss, and that's a great, just powerful artistic choice. But on the contrary, if you want to make music that's um psychedelic or vibey or
Yeah.
relaxing or whatever, like then that the I feel like the tape hiss or amp hum or whatever adds this nice bed of like even when there's silence, there's something that's carrying you through this journey. Or like you can feel the room. It's not just vacuum sealed sound in like a digital space.
It's funny that the first word you chose was psychedelic because as you were like trying to think of what you're going to say, like I was going to say, if you want to make music that is enjoyable on psychedelics, that those are the things that are like required because what you're describing with the the 808 followed by the like literal
Mhm.
black hole of silence, whatever we want to call it. I've done enough to know that, like, you wanna turn that off immediately. You're like,
Right.
"Whoa, what the
Right.
fuck is that?"
Absolutely.
Like,
It's just it's stressful. And
different different
it
if
makes
you're doing Molly, like, very, very different, but
right.
we're all everything's influenced by different drugs, directly or indirectly. In the case of music, very often directly. Um, but yeah, you were go ahead. You were saying something.
Oh, no, 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 no. You're absolutely I was gonna are you a Beach Boys fan at all?
Uh-huh.
Um, that their album Smiley Smile,
Mhm.
which I hadn't gotten into until like couple of maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. There's a great podcast called Sail On about the Beach Boys that I got into, and they go through like the studio notes and every outtake, and it's for dorks only.
Yeah.
But they were doing an episode about Smiley Smile, and it's like their first home recorded album.
Mhm.
There's hiss all over it. The mix is by all standards awful. There's tons of like just uh tape saturation and distortion and all these things that I don't know if they were intentional or
Probably not. Yeah.
unintentional.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably not. It's an old home recording in like a definitely untreated room, but that record has gained a reputation for helping people come down from bad trips.
Mm,
Because there's something it's not necessarily like a happy record, but
right.
there's something so peaceful and homey and familiar about it that resonates with people. Um, and it's silly. It's I don't know, all around great listen. But yeah, I think there is something to that. Like even when there's not music happening. There's just a constant room sound happening.
Yeah. It's it's more like nature in that way.
Absolutely.
Whereas like uh the type of electronic music you're describing is almost like sci-fi or something.
Mm.
Um this is like yeah, more natural. And I want to be clear that though I have a strong preference for one over the other, the vast majority of the time, I do not believe that one is inherently better than the other.
Absolutely.
I like psychedelics and that's kind of like my jam. Um and I so that's s- sent me in a different direction of taste or whatever it may be. But when I have done MDMA, like, and you go and listen to electronic music, you're like, "Oh my god, it's like a lock and a
It makes
key."
sense.
It just
Right.
makes so much sense, like, all that shit that I found so fucking annoying, I'm like, "It's perfect." Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's fascinating, you can't overcome that. Like, it's there's something chemically going on, um, where we have some sort of response to that type of sound, whatever we wanna call it, that's, like, almost like no one is above it if you're on that thing, you know what I mean?
Right. And I've never done MDMA, but
Should try it out sometime.
I mean I love it, the I don't know. I love like house music. I love the idea of it. I love the idea of like blissing out to just repetitive bass and drums. Um but yeah, in my pretty limited experience of psychedelics, I don't think I listened to music either time. I was just in my
Really?
own little world, you know? Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think if I listened to any music either
That's a
time.
that's
I remember, I was trip
fine.
sitting one of my friends, and we were doing like a YouTube swap where we were like in front of the TV. He was coming up and he had never done anything like that
Mhm.
before. And uh we pulled up Kiss from a Rose, the music video. I don't know if you've seen that music video, but
No, but
it's
I know the song.
a lot of clips from Batman.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
a
it was on the
great,
soundtrack.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a weird video. Um, but that's the closest thing that I can think of right now. I
It's an
think we listened
amazing
to White
song.
Rapid as a joke whenever I was first doing mushrooms with
That's
some
a
friends.
makes sense.
But I think once it started, it was like no music. We were outside. And when we came back in, we listened to Stevie Wonder, I think, and
Mhm.
that was pretty great.
Yeah.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, I recommend it. I've had I've tripped with a lot of the same people, like, mostly in college, it was like a thing we do every couple months, and we would almost always time it up so that, like, when we were peaking, we would, like, smoke a J on top of it and, like, lay down outside, look at the clouds, and, like, have a speaker behind us, and just, like to the point to where, like because we knew that you'd be getting to that level of stoned, whatever you wanna call it, that, like, you actually really struggle with language. Like,
Right.
talking is really challenging and, like,
Mhm.
anxiety inducing, so to just like, "Alright, this is what we're doing, we're putting on"
Right, putting
we
the
agree
boundary up.
ahead of time, like, "Here's the record we're putting on,"
Alright,
and, like
what are the big
yeah.
3 for experiences?
Well, this was, like, in college, and with my group of friends, almost all of us were musicians, and it was always, Lonerism, that's the big one, the
It's a good
Tame
record.
Impala record, and, yeah, there was one time there was, like, 9 of us, and we listened to Yoshimi Bettle's The Pink Robots, the Flaming Lips record,
Both
um
records that are just, like, saturated, tapey,
Dave Fridman.
wonderlands of sound.
Yeah. The uh he mixed both of them. Dave, are you familiar with Friedman? I don't know how to say it.
You know,
Um,
I can't think of his discography, but I've heard that name a billion times.
he's done uh I forget when because they have so many records, but for the past like 20 plus years, he's done every single Flaming Lips record. I believe he's done every MGMT record. He's done
Oh, okay.
the
Have you
first
listened to the new MGMT record?
I have not. I'm a big fan
It's
like
really good.
in of them, but like I haven't I don't like I'm not like super hip to new releases um anymore, really. I kind of like live in my own little music bubble, which I like.
Yeah,
Um
definitely.
yeah. But
It's I highly recommend though. I also like it's completely different from their record Little Dark Age that came out
yeah,
probably like 5 years ago at this point,
yeah.
but it's great.
Cool.
I'm sure he mixed
If
it.
it's different from that, that's awesome. That's one thing I love about them is that they are always willing to throw the curveball. Um,
Absolutely. And it still sounds it can't not sound like them.
yeah, that's one. Congratulations, I've definitely listened to that one before, but
Mm,
the first time I ever took mushrooms, I was supposed to do it with one or two other friends. We were camping, and I don't remember if it was one or two, but I wound up being the only one who did it. Like they like bailed on me, and this was not the first time. And like
right,
I was like 18 or 19 and I had really
right.
been like wanting to do this and we're like out camping, like I have the mushrooms and I was like frustrated, but I was like, I'm gonna okay, like I guess I'm just gonna do this by myself because like I'm ready for this, you know?
Man, that's 18-year-old behavior.
Yeah. But
Leave you alone for the first time. That's
I
bold.
like I sat on uh like at a campground they have like they have those same uh, table bench things all in one, you know?
Oh, right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a picnic bench, I think is what we call it. I don't know. But
Picnic table.
I laid on it like on, where you would place the food. And I had like my speaker behind me and I listened to like 3 or 4 records in a row with my like acoustic guitar just like noodling along. So like when hearing you say, I don't know if I've listened to music, I'm like, man, like it's like almost inseparable for me. Um,
Mm.
although yeah, yeah, I would go that. Even still, I always find time to play music during a trip, you
Yeah,
know?
well, the first time, there was probably music being played that I wasn't aware of
Like
because
that Sprouts employee, huh? Yeah,
yeah, really.
yeah.
Well, I took like a normal dose, and this is my first time, like, I think I took like 2.53 or something, and we were all having tea, and someone had left their tea out. This is like 2 hours in, and for some reason, I don't know why, I went back inside and just, like, finished their tea, so I have no idea how much I did.
Mm,
I was completely just out in space, like fractal land.
yeah,
So, if there was music being played, if there was conversations being had, I
you
was
don't
not
know.
privy to
Yeah,
it.
yeah, interesting. Um, I wanna wrap this out. I'm getting a hunch that you're an Aphex Twin fan.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's great.
Um, because I feel like there are, like, old like, I'll say 90s electronic or, like, house. I have a good friend who has a a lo-fi house playlist,
Mhm.
and he's been making it for years, and it's, like It's fucking awesome, and it's one of those things that can kind of live in both worlds, as in like the psychedelics or the electronic MDMA world, whatever we want to call it.
Right.
Um, because there's a lot of analog equipment involved. Um, and that's like an awesome thing that I love too. And I just you'd reference IDM, and I just kind of got the hunch that you were probably an Aphex Twin fan. I'm a big fan.
You got the name of the playlist?
Yes. It's
The link
called
in the show notes?
yeah, I will. I'll put it in there. It's I need to find it specifically because it's called House Life, except there are so many called that, and he spelled it kind of funky to
Oh, okay.
distinguish it. So here we go. I think like all of this matters. So lowercase house and
Okay.
then no space, capital LYFE. Um, and it's
Oh,
made by Sherry Laridan.
found it.
His name is Larry Sheridan. Um, it's awesome. It's so
Oh,
good.
Honey's on here. They're awesome.
Similar thing where I'm usually not paying attention to what I'm
Yeah.
listening to.
I only know Honey because or HNNY.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
assuming that's how you pronounce it. But there's a playlist on Spotify by did you ever watch Balloon Shop in the early days of YouTube?
No.
They were like a sketch group, like three college guys, very, very silly content. But
Mhm.
one of the guys in that group had a house playlist kind of like this. And it was like the first house music I'd ever listened to. And there was a Honey track on there. And
Cool.
it was a big, big moment for me hearing that. So
Yeah.
I trust and um, will listen to this playlist.
Yeah.
I
It's
endorse it.
I'm looking now. It's 26 hours long. He's been
Wow.
actively curating this for like at least like 4 years.
Those
Um
are the best.
yeah. So, um all right, it's time for the final segment.
Okay.
We've been talking a lot about playlists and stuff. I have one for this podcast, and it's called A Collective Musical Mind. And what I need from you is one album, EP, or song that very recently has had you fired up and inspired to make your own music.
Oh man. Okay. Well, I know exactly what I'm gonna say,
All
but
right.
I can only put one track on here. So,
You can do a
um,
whole record if you need to. That's
this record I'm assuming is like 2 hours long. So I'm not gonna do
oh, wow. Okay.
that. A song before sunrise by Frederick Delius. It's this. I've been doing this. Uh,
Is this classical music?
it is classical music for the
Cool.
last like 2 or 3 days. I I'm a big Scott Walker fan, and I was reading some interview where he referenced Delius, and I had never heard of him. He's like this English composer from like turn of the century. And the other day, I was taking a walk by this creek, and I was listening to his music in my headphones, and I just meant for it to be a stroll. I ended up walking like 2 or 3 miles listening to this music because it's perfect for nature walks. Like it's total just emotional manipulation.
Mhm.
um, like you'll pass a tree or see a butterfly or something, and there's a little violin trill here.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely gorgeous. Cannot recommend it enough. And all of his music is inspired by nature, and I don't know. I'm fascinated. He's won me over like this week. Big
Perfect.
hard recommend.
All right. I'll have to check that one out tonight too. Um, well, Bob, thank you for being here. Thanks for your
Absolutely.
time. Thanks for letting us into your mind.
Of course. Thanks, Rick.
All right, that was Bob Cummins Jr., everyone. If you want to connect with Bob, you can do that on Instagram. That will be Bob Cummins Jr. This is all in the show notes, like it always is, but I'm going to tell you anyway. And you can also find that link to his Spotify. If you listen elsewhere, you'll have to just search him. Search Bob Cummins Jr. And I would recommend listening to his record, Good American Songbook. Um, Hit single off that one, Could You Be My Magic Arm? I was just listening to that right before recording this little clip right here, and that's the one. I think he may have opened with that song, and there's just some slick modulation in that tune, slick chord changes, and that's when I was at the show. I remember hearing that, and I remember being like, "This fucking guy knows what he's doing." So go check that tune out. Check out the other ones as well, and have a great afternoon, morning, or evening, whatever you're doing, and do something a little bit different today. All right. Till next time. Bye. Thanks for listening to A Musical Mind. I have been your host, Richard Raymond II. If you, your band, or your friend, or anyone you know is in need of mixing and mastering services, I offer that remotely. Shoot me an email. That's richardraymond2@gmail.com. No spaces, all spelled out. You can also give me a follow, Richard_Raymond_II on Instagram. Shoot me a DM. We'll get to making some cool shit. And please like this podcast, share it with a friend, give it a 5-star rating. It ain't too hard to do. I appreciate you for being here, and I'll see you next time.